Happy New Year, football fans. Juan Green for Inside the Hashes for the Air It Out podcast, and I am rejoined by all three of my compatriots here on the Air It Out podcast. I got Mr. Darius Riddick to my left. I got Mr. Darren Braxton over there, and I got Mr. Avery Collins right below me. What's up, you guys?
What's going on?
Yeah,
Happy New Year.
good.
You know,
Happy New Year, fellas. How y'all doing?
just so I can settle this permanently, what is this direction again? I keep forgetting. What it is.
Diagonal.
Diagonal. So vertical, horizontal, diagonal. Yeah, I got to keep that in mind. I might have to have Darren sit me down and teach me about like directions, like sit down with a notebook and everything. Because I got it. I feel like I've been out of school too long, and it's only been a year. So guys, I know we usually start out the podcast talking, a little bit of the light humored stuff and a little bit of good things to talk about, but it's hard not to avoid what happened yesterday. As a lot of people noticed, or if you haven't been watching the news, the U.S. Capitol was under siege. Pro-Trump protesters, or I guess I can call them rioters, or even attempted coup, to say the least, try to invade the Capitol to try to halt the confirmation of the electoral votes for Joe Biden. There were reports that 4 people died, 3 police officers, 1 of the protesters inside of the building. There were pipe bombs found around the facility. And there were a bunch of people just, attacking what is essentially a pillar of the U.S. democracy and a symbol of what the U.S. government is supposed to represent. And I guess I'm just going to go around the horn here. I'll start Avery there, then Darren, then Darius. Guys, your reactions to what happened yesterday.
To be honest, nothing surprises me anymore. After the 2020 that we've had, nothing surprises me anymore. We're 6 days into 2021, and then we have the Capitol storm. I mean, and it's basically a temper tantrum because you didn't get what you wanted. You lost, like you couldn't handle defeat. To me, that's just I don't like I said, it's not surprising to me. Some people are saying it's Antifa. Some people are saying that it really is. It was staged. Whatever it was, it happened. And at the end of the day, it should not have happened in this country. Point blank. Period. I mean, I just don't. I don't understand it. Like if we're talking about, the land of the free and the home of the brave, and we're talking about equality and everything like that. We're talking about a democracy. We're talking about all of these different things handled except defeat, right? Like the votes came in, like you had a chance to get your guy in there, and you lost, and it is what it is. And it's like, for me, man, obviously the glaring thing is the fact that it's like, how did this happen in the first place? Because let that have been it has to be said, and it's the truth. Let that have been a Black Lives Matter protest, and we might be talking about a higher body count. We're talking about tear gas and rubber bullets and different things like that, right? And so I saw a meme the other day that said, "We're not asking you to shoot them like you shoot us. We're asking you to not shoot us like you don't shoot them." It's like, how in the world was that not considered rioting and considered just complete buffoonery? It's considered protesting. And then you have the head of the United States egging it on and encouraging it. It's just, to me, it's just like, like I said, it's not surprising. It's just the state of where the country is right now. And, I think people need to stop being naive and ignorant to the fact that racism, bigotry, being spoiled, prejudice, all of these things are alive, well, and breathing in this country.
Darren, I think you're a history teacher over where you teach, right?
No, I actually I do English and science. But I had this talk multiple times today with a lot of my students, and it all came back kind of to the same point. Just do it fair, as Avery said. If you're not going to shoot them, don't shoot us. If you're going to have the entire National Guard or SWAT team sitting on the steps of the White House and the Capitol when a Black Lives Matter protest was going on peacefully, do the same for them right now. Because there's no way that you should be seeing people that's not elected officials inside at the podiums
taking selfies with the cops.
You have to understand the importance of what they were doing and how that is represented. This is not to be tolerated by anyone. But the fact that it was tolerated yesterday and almost cheered on by many people is sad. I don't really want to be going into too much more.
Now, I will say this: I hope that they do what they've been doing, because a lot of people don't know, and I even just found out, but they have been arresting people who've been taking pictures and different things like that since George Floyd passed away, and since George Floyd was murdered, and those people who have been taking pictures or been caught in pictures, the cops have been arresting them. Like, they're not broadcasting that on the news, but the cops have been arresting them. I'm hoping that's going to be the same and different things like that. I'm hoping that they get their justice.
And I know you want to add like some quick thoughts into it, especially because like both of us like really heavy in media work. What do you think about not only the attack that these guys had on the Capitol, but on media personnel on the floor covering this?
It's like Avery said. I'm not surprised, right? I mean, just go off what you said. The media, how the media portrays these rioters, right? Like, you stormed the Capitol, which is supposed to be heavily guarded, and they're breaking in. They're taking selfies. I saw a video of a guy smoking a blunt inside the Capitol. We saw a guy, I think one of the Nancy, I think her name was, in her desk with his feet up, just laughing.
Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
Mm-hmm. Like, we see Confederate flags in Trump 2020, so it's not surprising, but it's just more of, it shows like, racism is around this country, and white privilege is a thing. No matter how many people want to say it's not, it is, because like everyone said, let that have been a Black Lives Matter peaceful protest, the outcome would have been different. We wouldn't be talking about the protest. We were talking about how many people probably would have been murdered just because we just want justice. We want to be treated equally. We want to be able to be. Well, I want to be able to walk down the street and have my hood on and not be looked at differently just because of the color of my skin. So I think it's a sad situation, but it just goes back to Avery's point, man. Racism is real and privilege is real, because if that was, like we said, if that was a Black Lives Matter protest, the media would have said rioters and these angry people, and Trump would have been tweeting a storm like he said before, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. So it's a different outcome when there's different races protesting for obviously different things.
And I know we're a football podcast and we mainly stick to that, but ladies and gentlemen, whoever's watching this right now, just because we're a football podcast doesn't mean we're not human, doesn't mean we don't have emotions, does not mean that we are not angry or emotional with everything that's going on in the world. They always say to athletes, especially, just stick to sports, stick to sports, or just keep dribbling, or shut up and dribble. With media people, especially too, like involved in that conversation, we will not stop talking about these issues. We won't try to subdue these kinds of situations just because we're specialized in one area. We speak for what we believe in and what we want to say, and that's just how we operate. And I'm glad to be part of a podcast that supports that kind of approach. So to everyone here, and especially I want to give a quick message to the people who were inside the Capitol, to the police and Secret Service people that were in the Capitol facing this kind of siege, those that are actually trying to fight back and trying to keep these people out. We're with you. We love you. We support you. We hope you're okay. And we hope that you're at safe home with your families. And to the ones that passed away, we're truly sorry that something like this happened because of a very, very, very misleading situation and a very angry person trying to lead an angry siege and a result that he could not agree with. And I won't be calling names on that. And with that being said, I am rolling into the rundown for today. And the first bit of news on the rundown is Well, the NFL has tried its best not to cancel any games due to COVID regulations, and it's still keeping to that policy, as it was reported earlier today that the Browns and Steelers game was still on, despite the fact that the starting center for the Browns is out, Joe Patonio, with COVID, despite the fact that the head coach is out due to COVID, and multiple members of the Browns coaching personnel and players have been diagnosed with COVID and have been ruled out, especially as today, safety Ronnie Harrison tested positive for COVID-19, and he has been ruled out for the game on Saturday. And remember, guys, when the Browns were hit by COVID devastatingly earlier this season, Week 16 versus the New York Jets, they lost that game because they didn't have their receiving core available to help them, try to get the passing game going, which is something that's picked up in recent weeks. So how will the Browns fare going up against a top 2 rated Steelers defense who rested their starters on a Week 17 game that really meant nothing to them? We'll have to find out. Then moving on to our next bit of news regarding the wildcard weekend, Mike Evans has been ruled questionable in a game time decision for Tampa's game against the Washington football team this Saturday. It was reported that Greg Allman of The Athletic saw Evans practicing and testing out his injured knee early on Thursday, that he looked comfortable and could be a possible go for Tampa's wildcard game. And remember, Evans hurt his knee. He hyperextended it a play after he set the record for most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons to start a career, surpassing Randy Moss's record at 6. Now, Mike Evans has 7, as well as the fact that he finished the regular season with 70 catches for 1,006 yards and 13 touchdowns, which that last one, a franchise record. And finally, just to wrap it around a little bow, the head coaching GM signing frenzy that's happening this offseason is already off to a good start, as the Texans found their leading man and former Patriots director of player personnel, Nick Caserio, is now their new general manager. Remember, Caserio was also in the running for GM last year, but the Patriots blocked that signing to keep him for one more year. Now Houston has your man. Caserio has been with the organization for a long time, nearly 20 years. He's been an integral part of the Patriots, winning 6 Super Bowls and appearing in 9 of them. We'll see what he has to offer for the Houston Texans. And that will conclude today's rundown. And guys, we're only going to touch on 2 of these subjects right now, just for time constraints. The first one we're going to touch on is the Mike Evans game situation, or whether or not he'll play this coming weekend. Now, Tampa has some great weapons on offense already. Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, even the running back group isn't too shabby. How will the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fare should Mike Evans not be ready to go? And Darius, I'll give you that one on the floor.
I think they'll still do pretty well, right? I think if Mike Evans does go, you have him on a snap count, simply just because he did hyperextend his knee. He has a game time decision, and you don't want to risk a further injury if you do beat Washington this week, and then you possibly have to face a team like Green Bay or New Orleans. You would want him to be in that matchup 100% go. So I think going into that game, if he's going, have him on a snap count. Don't have him there too much. But this is why they signed guys like, obviously, Antonio Brown, who last week finished with 2 touchdowns or over 100 plus receiving yards, right? You have Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. So you have Scotty Miller, you have Rob Gronkowski. So Tom Brady still has weapons. Obviously, he doesn't have his number 1 weapon in Mike Evans, and a crucial playoff game against a Washington football defense that arguably is a pretty solid defense. But I think if he does go, you put him on the snap count, just because you don't want to risk any further injury, especially when you're on the road in a hostile environment. So I definitely think that just put him on a snap count and let those other guys step up, really.
Now, that game is in addition to the Saturday Super Wildcard weekend that we have going on here in the NFL. I think it's an afternoon game, and after that will be the Browns Steelers game that has surprisingly not been postponed, despite the fact that there's been so many positive COVID tests going on in the facility. Darren, is this the right move by the NFL to try to keep the Super Wildcard weekend intact? Why not just push it just a little bit further in the week?
Honestly, I understand what the NFL is doing. They're at basically the finish line now for them. They need to get through these playoffs, and they'll have successfully completed the NFL season going through the pandemic. And I think that's their main goal right now, as well as trying to push games back at this point would just be a little more strenuous when it comes to how they how they work the schedule. But I do think with who it is that's out is going to hurt the teams, definitely in the long run. But it's the NFL with COVID. Everyone has been dealing with this. So at this point, and with all the people that's gone off of both teams so far, they should know and how understand how to deal with it by this time.
And I kind of want to ask this to Avery really quick before we move forward. Avery, it's position players that are like being ruled out for these games, like the centers, wide receivers, defensive backs, linebackers. If a franchise quarterback were to catch COVID in one of these situations, would they then rule out a game, or would it still be just move on forward?
I think they would. I think they would probably reschedule at that point. I mean, we saw it with the Ravens before when Lamar Jackson caught COVID. They were like, "Well, we're not going to let you guys play that game without Lamar." And so, I think they would if it was Baker or Lamar or something like that, then they would obviously postpone the game. The sad thing is, like, if it was, let's say it was Nick Chubb, they wouldn't postpone it because I think it's a situation where they're like, "Oh, well, you got Kareem Hunt behind you, and Nick Chubb has already missed games." Yeah. And so it's just, I think it would have to be, the quarterback for them to postpone it. So for me, yeah, I don't see another player, allowing it to have anything other than, like I said, maybe a day or two. If it was like Nick Chubb, maybe. But like if we're talking about postponed to another week, it's got to be a quarterback.
And in a QB-driven league, there's only 32 of these jobs available in the entire world right now. And this coming offseason, we could see a rotation in a QB carousel coming, especially in the form of trades and signings and free agencies and cuts. And you know what, guys? Takes us to our first topic of the day, which is possible QB trades, you guys. And right now I have three quarterbacks on the potential trading block right now. Nothing's been officially confirmed. If Wilson gets that game, it will get pushed back. Yeah, no, that's right. Like, thanks, Chris. Like, yeah, if Russell Wilson got COVID, it will be pushed back. But back to our QB carousel. These are three names that have been in the rumored media to be traded from the respective teams, but we are not really sure about it. It is the New York Jets with Sam Darnold. It is the San Francisco 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo, and it is Carson Wentz with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm going to assign each of you one of these QBs to break down what could be the possible trade value for another team to acquire it. So I'm going to give Sam Darnold to Avery. I'm going to give Carson Wentz to Darren, and I'm going to give Jimmy Garoppolo to Darius. And we're going to start with Darren, then Darius, then Avery. So go.
Sorry. All right. So when it comes to Carson Wentz, we all know the story of what's going on. A guy that went from being the number 2 overall pick, showing a lot of promise, going into an MVP form type season, and then from there getting injured, unfortunately. Going from there, he continued to show he had promise, but still had an injury bug. And now, after this abysmal season he's had, I think Carson Wentz's price tag is at an all-time low. But for him, with everything that he has done in his past, it still be at least a first rounder. You have to understand what he's coming off of. A year like this, 16 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, tied for the league lead. The guy that has the same exact stats almost as him, Drew Lock, a second-year player. You have to understand this guy's progressing a little bit, and he needs a little more coaching. He needs a little bit better cast around. And I think, honestly, with the situation that they have in Philly, if they wanted to do a small rebuild, it would not be the worst thing. We start with Jalen Hurts on that offense and build around him. You have a top 10 pick, and it will work. They have a few guys there. Miles Sanders is already there. Dallas Goedert is already there. They have a few guys, and if Jalen Reagor is the guy they wanted, possibly next year he can step up. But I think Carson Wentz can possibly get traded to the Colts. Colts are probably one of the best picks for him. But I will say this. Do not be surprised if the Bears try to go for him. Do not be surprised if the Bears try to go for him. Matt Nagy is off of Doug Peterson, Andy Reid. Those guys try to be that quarterback guru. They know what they're doing. And with Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles there, neither one of those guys are going to be the starter next year in the Bears in Chicago. So I'm saying Carson Wentz possibly there as well.
It's also funny you mentioned Drew Lock earlier because the Denver Broncos are also a possible destination spot for Carson Wentz in the offseason. Darius, Jimmy G, the former Patriot, coming your way. Like, he's been injured the past couple seasons over in San Francisco, but he has an incredible winning record, 22-8 as a starter for the 49ers. Where do you see him going, even if the trade rumors don't have any merit to them?
I'm gonna be a little bit of a homer just because I was a fan of Jimmy G when obviously Brady had the suspension, right? Everybody. Belichick was another guy who said, "Hey, listen, I want to keep him," and then there was the tension between Brady saying, "I don't want this guy, trade him." And you got to understand the Patriots and 49ers, they have a little bit of a friendly trade history. I would love Jimmy Garoppolo to come to the New England Patriots, right? I think it's a great fit. You add him with Josh McDaniels. That answers the QB issue, and then the Patriots, they don't really have to draft the quarterback in the first round. They can either go defense or they can try to draft a wide receiver. But I definitely think another team possibly that could, possibly use them if the Colts don't go for Wentz. I think the Colts, right? I think what Jimmy Garoppolo is, if you give him an offensive line that can block, right, which the Colts can do, you provide him with a running game and a two-headed monster with Jonathan Taylor, Marlon Mack, who's coming back from injury. You have Nigel Haynes. You have Michael Pittman. So they have weapons. You have a defense. That's the formula for the Colts to win, especially because you don't know what you really have in Jacoby Brissett. Like, you feel like you don't really trust him enough. So that's why you bring in Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is probably going to go out. He's probably going to leave because he signed a 1-year deal. And if he loses, it's like, all right, I have nothing else to play for, really. No team is going to sign me, especially for $25 million a year again. So I definitely think it's a situation like that. I definitely could see him going to either the Colts or I would love him come to the Patriots. I'm being a homer just because they need a quarterback, and he knows the system. He knows Josh McDaniels. And again, like I said, that eliminates the problem that the Patriots really have is a quarterback. And Jimmy Garoppolo is still young. He's not a 33-year-old quarterback who's on the latter half of his career. He's still young, and he still has some football left in him.
He's 29.
Still young.
So he's borderline on 30.
He's still young. He's not 33.
No, I said borderline on 30.
Yeah, he's not
borderline on 30.
Matthew Stafford or all these other quarterbacks I've been hearing.
But that's the quarterback prime, though.
That's what I'm saying. 29 is like you can play another 10 years.
And you know what? He's not even
That's
the youngest
a quarterback.
You say he's young. He's not even the youngest QB on this carousel right now. That'll be Sam Darnold, which moves me to Avery. Because Avery, I know when we were on the Run It Back podcast, shout out to Mark Thompson and Chris Thomas for their podcast for their radio show down in Philly. You were so fevering against Sam Darnold being traded out of the New York Jets, and I was too for a while until I really took a look at how this kid's development and confidence has been destroyed in New York. But just entertain me a little bit, the possibility here, Avery. What is a good trade package for Sam Darnold, and what's a good destination?
So first things first, let me just say Jimmy G's not going anywhere. He's staying put. And with Carson Wentz, you're not getting a first round for Carson Wentz.
Darnold the pit, Jimmy G back to NE, and Wentz won't get traded. Well, if he does Wentz to Indy, it makes too much sense. Howie Roseman, do you think he can pull it off? Oh, Jimmy G to Washington too, even though Cam Newton is rumored to be the better fit going down into DC.
Indy is a great fit because they're look what they did last year. They spent their first round pick on DeForest Buckner and it worked. Why wouldn't they do it again?
Listen, it's a great fit, but like I said, they're not. You're not getting a first. You have to understand what you're giving up. You're giving up a first round to take on a contract with a guy that you're not really sure about. He's not for a first rounder. Anyway, with that being said, he could get traded to the Colts, just not for a first round. With that being said, Sam Darnold, like I said before, I don't think he should get traded because I don't think he's the problem. I honestly think the Jets should trade out of that third pick and get some more picks, get some receivers and different things like that, and work it out. Because I just don't see Sam Darnold being the problem, being the problem there. Anyway, if he does get traded, a couple different places that I think that he could go and do well. Number one, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Why? Because Tom Brady's not going to play forever, right? So if you give Sam Darnold some time behind Tom Brady to learn how to be a quarterback, you get him with somebody like Bruce Arians, and Sam Darnold can throw the ball down the field. We all know that. And Bruce Arians likes to air the ball out. So you allow him to sit down, rebuild his confidence, get those things and those small little mechanical issues taken care of under, like I said, watching Tom Brady and under Bruce Arians as your head coach. I think that'd be a pretty good move for them, for the Bucs in that regard. So that's number one. That's the number one destination I could see, and they're primed and ready for him to come and succeed. They've got a running game, they've got weapons, they've got a really good and young defense, and it doesn't look like they're going to be really threatened right now for the the NFC South in the future, because obviously again Drew Brees is going on the latter end of his career, and the Falcons, we just don't know what's going on with that. So that's number one. That's number one. Number two, I would say, and this is not number two as in this is the second best, just number two in my head, the Oakland Raiders, right? And the reason I believe so is because if you're not sold on Derek Carr, I think that Gruden wants a guy who's going to be able to push the ball down the field to Henry Ruggs, right? He wants a guy that's going to be able to throw the ball down the field and open up the playbook like they do in Kansas City with Tyreek Hill and different things like that. So I think that John Gruden might look into a guy like a Sam Darnold and say, hey, listen, man, I think I could work with this kid, get him rolling and hitting off on all the cylinders. Because like I said, he needs a tight end as a safety blanket. You got that one in Darren Waller. You need a deep threat, and Henry Ruggs, you got that. You need somebody who can run routes underneath. You got that in Brian Edwards. I think that they've got some talent over there. And they got a running game with Josh Jacobs. So I think that that could be another destination. And then finally, the third and final destination. Again, this is not in any particular. I mean, obviously the Bucs to me is number one, but outside of the Bucs, number three. And I was torn because I wanted to say the Broncos, but I'm like, nah, I don't think that'll be a good fit for him. I don't like that fit there. And plus, like I said, I still have a little bit of faith in Drew Lock. But again, so number three would be Dallas. And the reason I say that is because I think that if he can sit behind Dak Prescott for a little bit, if Dak stays there, if he doesn't, I think I think he's a better option than Andy Dalton. The reason I believe that is because he's younger, and you get to pair him up with CeeDee Lamb, and they can do some things, right? They can build a little bit of a career together potentially in Dallas. And like I said, if it's a situation where he gets to sit behind Dak for a couple of years, then I think that he can learn a couple of things and then get traded to another team. Because if you sign Dak to a long-term contract, he's not going to end up outplaying Dak, but he can learn some things and then get traded to another team in the future or whatever the situation. Or if Dak gets hurt, he's a good backup to come in. And then just a dark horse team, just that I would like to throw in there, just a small little dark horse team. This is going to sound funny, so I need y'all to bear with me. All right, the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh.
Listen. Here's why.
No, I'm not even giving you a chance for that one, man. No. I'm not even giving you a chance for that one. No, we're getting off the QB. We're getting off the QB carousel. We're jumping on to another carousel. We're jumping on to the head coaching carousel. And Avery, we'll talk about that opinion off air when we get to it. But right now, we're getting into the head coaching carousel. We've had 6 openings in the head coaching world that happened the past couple of days. First off, it's the Chargers. They fired Anthony Lynn. The Falcons firing Dan Quinn. The Jets firing Adam Gase. Jaguars, Doug Marrone. The Lions, Matt Patricia. And the Houston Texans firing Bill O'Brien. 6 empty chairs here in the NFL who can take it. Now, here are the potential candidate lists I have listed out. It's the Niners defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh, Chiefs offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, Panthers OC, Joe Brady, Titans OC, Arthur Smith, former Bengals head coach, Marvin Lewis, former Lions head coach, Jim Caldwell, Colts defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus, Buccaneers defensive coordinator Todd Bowles, Bills offensive coordinator Brian Dable, Giants offensive coordinator Jason Garrett, Rams defensive coordinator Brandon Staley, and Saints defensive backs coach Aaron Glenn, who had a again, we'll get that checked. But yeah, so the last one being requested by the Jets earlier today, and we're gonna go around the horn here very, very quickly. We're gonna go Darius first, Darren second, every third. Who goes where?
It's tough, man. I think it's really a little bit tough. I think obviously I can, it's a lot of great candidates, right? Todd Bowles, he's proven that, he can, I feel like can coach a team, but I definitely can see the 49ers defensive coordinator definitely getting a job, right? Like you could see him possibly going to Detroit, right? Just helping that defense. It's a good defense. They're young. They got some pieces out there. I would love to see the Chiefs offensive coordinator. Honestly, I would love him and Deshaun Watson to link up and really do some damage. I think he can actually take Deshaun Watson game to another level. I mean, he doesn't really need that much help just because he finished the league.
Provided Deshaun Watson is still there.
Yes, if Deshaun Watson is still there, you bring in a guy like him who obviously we see what he can do in Kansas City, right? You give him a guy like Deshaun Watson, who's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. He finished with the most passing yards, and he did it with little to no really big weapons, especially after Will Fuller. So I definitely can see, him getting a job. I definitely think last year he should have got one, but definitely this year he definitely should have got one. Marvin Lewis, I mean, I don't know, man. We see his track record, especially in the playoffs. Hasn't had a playoff one with the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, I can definitely see Jason Garrett definitely probably get another head coaching gig. He wasn't a bad coach. I don't think he wasn't as bad as a coach as everybody thought he was. He's proven to be a solid offensive coordinator. So I definitely think he's definitely gonna possibly get a job. So, but yeah, man, the 49ers defensive coordinator, I can definitely see him, and the Chiefs offensive coordinator, they're definitely gonna get jobs. I would love to see him get a job with Deshaun Watson. I think that them two pairing up, they're gonna make some magic for the next 4 or 5 years if Deshaun Watson doesn't get traded.
All right, Darren, any particular spot you see anyone really being a good fit for?
I like Arthur Smith to the Chargers. And it's strictly because they have a stable of running backs and he knows what to do with the running game. You can see it evident with Derrick Henry and what he was able to do with him. Then you have to understand the development he did with those wideouts there into Tennessee. The wideouts he has in the Chargers, it would be lovely. A young and up-and-coming Jalen Guy and Mike Williams and Mr. Keenan Allen. Listen, and he still possibly will have Hunter Henry if he resigns with the Chargers this offseason. And then you have the possible Rookie of the Year in Justin Herbert, who just went and broke the touchdown record for rookies. So you got weapons there. And honestly, I really like the guy. But if not Arthur Smith, I like him for the Lions. So Arthur Smith to the Lions or the Chargers, and I'm just throwing that out there. I really want to see Robert Saleh get a head coaching job. The defensive coordinator is for the 49ers. Because you got to understand, he had an amazing defense when he had all the pieces. And even this year, with all the pieces that was getting hurt, that defense was still producing pretty well.
Scrubs for dubs by the work of Robert Saleh. And also, fun fact, Arthur Smith is, I think, the nephew or son of the person that owns FedEx.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a random fact.
Yeah. So we know he's coming from money, but he don't care.
He's coming from the money.
Because he's making his own green right here. Avery, really quick before we jump into our last topic, at least one or two guys you think could fit in any ideal place. If you want, touch specifically on the Falcons.
If I was to say the Falcons, like I said, I think Robert Saleh is a good pick because He's a defensive guy, and like I said, I think that's one of the areas that we need to get better at. Honestly, a surprising stat that I found out was the Falcons were actually 9th in the NFL in rushing defense this year. I didn't know that. So they did pretty well in that area, but on the back end, we were horrible. And so that's why I would like to see, a defensive type of guy come in because, like I said, offensively, I think we have enough weapons to do well. We need a coordinator, but I don't think that we're going to get one of those offensive coordinators like BABYYY to come in and just be a coordinator. He's going to come in and be the head coach or something like that. So, but like I said, I would love BABYYY as the head coach for sure, without question. But if not that, I would like the head coach for the Chargers to be the offensive coordinator. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the offensive coordinator for the Bills. I think
Brian Dable.
I think that would be a great pairing with Justin Herbert, that young guy. We saw what he did with Josh Allen and how he got him to progress as a passer. And you got somebody who already is just a pure passer, and you can open up the game a little bit even more for him. I think that would be just phenomenal. I think defensively they're always going to be solid, especially with Derwin James back. He covers up so many holes on that defense. I think that they're going to be fine defensively, especially with, like I said, they got veteran corners in Chris Harris and Casey Hayward. So I don't think you need to worry too much about that side of the ball. I think offensively, you saw Justin Herbert was struggling in the second half, right? He starts off the game extremely strong. He'll throw 3 touchdowns in the first half, and then score 3 points in the second. I think you bring in somebody who can unlock the playbook for him and unlock the potential in him, and I think that would be a phenomenal pairing. In my opinion.
I'll just give a quick rundown of who I think can go in some of these more important situations. I think the Texans get Eric Bieniemy simply for the attraction of Deshaun Watson. I think Robert Saleh goes to his hometown of Detroit to coach the Lions. I think Urban Meyer will be the Jaguars' next head coach. Somehow he'll get out of that contract in Fox, and I think he'll get onto it. For the Jets, Arthur Smith, I think, can do a pretty good job in New York, rebuilding a franchise. He was able to take what was a mediocre Titans offense and turn it into what is essentially a juggernaut. The Falcons, I would want to say Todd Bowles. I think would do a good job over there. He's a great culture guy.
I love Todd Bowles.
I think he's a great culture guy and can establish a good foundation for the team future there. And for the Chargers, I would want to go with either Joe Brady or Jim Caldwell. And mainly because Jim Caldwell, you saw what he was able to pull off with Matt Stafford.
I like Jim Caldwell,
Detroit, so he can develop a quarterback.
I like Joe Brady. Yeah.
Joe Brady,
maybe Joe Brady there.
Well, I'm just doing the quick run. And with that being said, guys, those were for all teams that couldn't make the playoffs. So let's go to teams that actually did make the playoffs, which is Super Wild Card Weekend. And guys, it is a great slate of games that we have coming over this weekend. Saturday alone has some great matchups to go with. We got Indianapolis versus Buffalo. We got Los Angeles versus Seattle. And we got Tampa Bay versus Washington for the prime time match up. So let's do that first. So guys, each of you pick one of these games. I'll just assign them to you. So for the Bills Colts game, I'm gonna give it to Avery. For the Rams Seahawks game, I'm gonna give it to Darius, and for the Washington Tampa game, I'm gonna give it to Darren. So Avery, Darius, and then Darren. Go.
Bills Colts, man,
that's got to be like the game of the week. That's gonna be a great game.
That game. Jeez, that's gonna be tough to choose, man. Jonathan Taylor's starting to come into his own. He's running that thing like we thought he was going to be running earlier in the season. The Bills, they're 6-0 in their last 6 games. Josh Allen is on a tear. Stephon Diggs is like, you can't guard me. That's tough. But I'm gonna go with the team that's hot right now, and I'm gonna spit. So I'm gonna choose the Buffalo Bills. I think they're gonna win this game. I think it's gonna be a hard fought game, but because the Colts are still a little young, I think I'm gonna and because Phillip Rivers hasn't shown that he's dynamic.
Jerome, don't distract us. Keep going.
Anywho, I think I'm gonna go with, like I said, I think I'm gonna go with the Bills here in this game. They're going to be at home. And so I think it's going to be. Say it again.
Quick hot take.
Yeah, my hot take for that game. Oh, yeah, I'm gonna do it, man. I don't. Yeah, okay. Josh Allen throws for 4 touchdowns, no picks. He rushes for 2.
6 total touchdowns on the day for Josh. I like that. He is that dynamic. He's an MVP candidate for a reason. I like that.
Against that Colts defense? Okay.
I think it could happen.
Okay.
And that's with a great front seven with Darius Leonard, with Kadoka Toure.
Okay, against those boys. Okay.
So all right, moving on to the next one. Guys, moving on to the next one. Los Angeles Chargers versus Seattle Seahawks. Darius, let it roll.
I think it's gonna be a good game. Obviously, it's a rivalry game. Jared Goff. I don't know if he's playing or not. I think he may or may not. Obviously, he's gonna be a few weeks away from the thumb surgery. Russell Wilson. We know how he plays in the playoffs. I don't know, man. We get to see DK Metcalf versus Jalen Ramsey for a 3rd straight time.
I think the wild card.
This is an underrated, but I love this wide receiver corner duo matchup. Tyler Lockett, obviously, we know he can do. Last time these 2 teams played, Seattle was able to get the win, and I believe Seattle is home, which makes it a little bit of a difference. Obviously the crowd's not there, but it's just something about playing home. But I definitely think the Seahawks are going to win. I think the Rams not having Jared Goff is going to hurt them. And I think the Seattle.
He's questionable, so he's not necessarily.
He may play or may not, but he's coming off a thumb surgery. He really hasn't been practicing either. So I think the Seahawks are going to dominate on all 3 sides of the football.
Got a hot take in the pocket.
Teams. And my hot take is the Seattle defense holds that Rams offense to under 250 yards for the entire game, and they win by a score of 34-10, and they advance to the divisional round. Seahawks, yes. They hold that defense. That defense is going to come to life. Yes.
I kind of like it, especially with the fact that Jamal Adams is questionable with the shoulder injury. Wow. He says he's going to play, but will we get as intensive a Jamal Adams season? We'll be seeing. In the meantime, Darren, hot take for Tampa, Washington. Let it roll.
All right, so we all know. Well, honestly, I can't even say we all know because it's any given Sunday, but everyone had the strong favorite of Buccaneers over Redskins. But this is the hot take here. Tom Brady has 2 turnovers go for touchdowns.
1 pick fumble, 1 INT.
Pick 6, fumble recovery. But they still win 28-14.
You're saying Washington's only going to pull up 14 points from those 2? Wow.
Alex Smith will get that down.
I think the hot take there is he's basically saying the offense is not going to score. I think that's more of a hot take because I could see that, Tom Brady.
Alex Smith has nothing.
I can see
underneath 150 yards passing, people.
Who?
Wow. Alex Smith.
Under 150 yards passing, yes.
You got to come back player of the year like that?
Yeah, people.
Okay.
Did you hear what Bruce Arians said? We're not playing a 7-9 team. We're playing a 4-1 team because when Alex Smith plays, they're 4-1.
4-1. They're 4-1. And that's why you get rid of Dwayne Haskins. All right. So it looks like from what I can gather, it's the Buffalo Bills, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pulling out the wins on Saturday. Let's move on to the Sunday slate of games. It's Baltimore at Tennessee. It's Chicago at New Orleans. And it's Cleveland at Pittsburgh. Now, remember, when Baltimore played Tennessee in the playoffs last year, that was at Baltimore. Now it's in Tennessee, and I'm just gonna give it over to Darren. We know we got to give it to Darren here, man. And Darren, just roll with it, man. Just roll with it.
So I'll be honest, people. When I heard who we was matching up with, the first words that came out of my mouth was something I cannot repeat for you guys today here. But when you got a guy that's averaging almost 160 yards on your team, whether it be regular season and playoffs combined, it's hard not to think that. I'm just sorry. But Our team is playing well. We're getting healthy at the right time. The defense is rolling. We're getting our turnovers. Our rushing game is at its all-time high. Last game, 400 yards rushing as a
J.K.
team.
Dobbins is a beast.
I'm telling you, you just got to understand. I feel like this will be it. I feel like that Titans defense will allow Lamar to get enough points to win this game. And yes, if we go back now, the last time we played at the Titans arena, we won 40-8. Just understand, it's going to be upset alert for them. I'm telling y'all now, 21-17. 21-17.
At least you're keeping it close this time.
That's a reasonable score, Darren.
I like that.
21-17.
Score.
You have. I feel like you have.
But listen, the hot take: Derrick Henry still go for $160.
It's not a hot take.
Tannehill doesn't do enough. Tannehill doesn't do enough and resembles his Miami days.
Ooh.
That's why it's a hot take.
The same Tannehill that threw for 40 touchdowns in the regular season? All right.
Over 4,000 yards?
Over 4,000 yards. With hold on, with actual weapons to help him with Mike Davis and with Corey Davis and Antonio.
Oh yeah.
AJ
Brown.
AJ Brown, excuse me. Oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Expect the pick.
Someone pour milk on this guy. He's too spicy. You're giving me stomach pains there. You're giving me tummy aches. All right. Then Chicago versus New Orleans. Low-key revenge game. Remember, New Orleans pulled off the 26-23 win in overtime at Soldier Field in Week 8. I'm going to give this right over to Avery.
Ew. This game is just not it's not intriguing at all. I mean, it is in a sense because the Bears still got a pretty decent defense. David Montgomery's playing out of his mind the last 4 weeks. He's really been balling. So, and we're seeing Mitchell Trubisky not turn the ball over, do what he's supposed to do, and different things like that. So it's the formula to win. But does anybody really see anybody other than the Packers beating the Saints in the NFC right now? Like, I mean, their defense is playing out of their mind. We're seeing Alvin Kamara come back into his own. Drew Brees is, just doing what he's got to do. I don't see the Bears beating them. Like I said, I called it last week. Y'all thought I was tripping. I said the Bears were going to make the playoffs, but y'all thought I was tripping. I said I had a feeling, and what happened? But I think the Saints are going to win this game. I think the Bears are going to, they're not going to have enough. I think it's going to be a closer game. Like, I don't think it's going to be a blowout or anything like that because the Bears defense really is legit. And like I said, the Saints defense is legit as well. So I don't think it's going to be a blowout or anything like that. But I do see the Saints pulling this thing out. I got it as a score 24-17.
And hot take?
My hot take is, man, it's tough because I really don't have a hot take. But I guess my hot take would, if I was to choose a hot take, David Montgomery outrushes Alvin Kamara.
Ooh, I can see that happening. That can happen.
That's nice.
Alvin, because Alvin doesn't run that rush that much in yardage. He's a first down yardage kind of guy. He's not a gainer. He's just a ground.
I really don't have a hot take. I mean, originally my hot take would have been, Drew Brees only throws one touchdown, right? But we've seen him do that before, so it's not really, a hot take as well. I think they're going to have to lean on Alvin Kamara this game, and I just think that the Bears running game, I believe more so in theirs than I do the Saints. And so I think David, and like I said, David Montgomery, since he's been in the league, I think he's either number 1 or number 2 in broken tackles. Like, that's ridiculous. A lot of people don't know that. Like, when he plays, the first guy doesn't tackle him. So I think he's going to, outrush Alvin Kamara in this game.
Now we know why Jordan Howard got released when he did. Darius, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. I mean, we talked about it earlier. What do you got?
This is a game where obviously Baker Mayfield's going to have to prove himself. His first playoff career game. Obviously, it's going to be a lot of nerves. He doesn't have, obviously, his head coach. Pittsburgh, obviously, Big Ben. They rested their players. You got guys like Casey Hayward, TJ Watt coming back. They were rested. So I definitely think this is going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a great game, an underrated game. But I think some weird feeling, something's telling me that the Browns are going to pull off the upset. I don't know what it is. I think Nick Chubb is gonna do some wonders, but I think ultimately the Browns are gonna pull off the upset, man. I could really see if they can just run the ball with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, but control the time possession and keep Big Ben off that field, and then even when he's on the field, you can pressure him with Myles Garrett. And then it's really going to determine too, I believe, if Denzel Ward comes back. That's going to be a huge plus for the Cleveland Browns. If he comes back, I think Cleveland wins this game. I think it's close. I think Cleveland wins on a late field goal, and they win by 3. My hot take, man, Nick Chubb rushes for 3 touchdowns, all within the first quarter. So they go up high. They score 21 unanswered points.
You know, that's not really that bad of a hot take because the Steelers' rushing defense is not that great. They do allow more than 100 yards per game.
It's all because of Nick Chubb. Go Browns. I'm a Browns fan this week.
Browns fan. All right. I mean, since the Patriots couldn't make it this year, I guess you're going to have to find another team to root for. And you know what? That's fine. And guys, I usually would have a pick game of the week for myself, but since, we spread it out, I'll just be doing just my hot takes for some of these games that we have here. For the Colts Bills game, of course, I got the Bills going for it. And I say that Josh Allen throws for 400 yards against this Colts defense, even because Rock Ya-Sin was ruled out for the game going in. For the Rams versus Seattle game, I'd say that it'll be Seattle winning it, and that whoever is at quarterback, whether it's Jared Goff or John Walford, will throw 3 interceptions in this game going into it, because Seattle's defense has really picked it up, and I think one of them will be by Shaquem Griffin and maybe Jamal Adams if he's up for it. Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Washington football team. I got my hot take is just this. I think Washington pulls the upset here. I think that defense does enough to put pressure on Tom Brady. We all see what happens when Tom Brady is under pressure.
Yes.
We saw it against the Los Angeles Rams. We saw it against the New Orleans Saints twice. And we saw it against, I can't remember who the other 2 losses were, but it was still under teams that can put great pressure on Tom Brady. And what happens when you put Tom Brady on the pressure? He's hesitant, he throws too quick, and he loses. Moving on to the Baltimore Ravens versus Tennessee Titans game. I have Tennessee actually pulling off the win over there. And I think, and I gave this hot take with Avery on Tuesday. I say that Derrick Henry turns Patrick Queen into the Earl Thomas of 2020, which is his and that rookie's gonna get rooked on, man. I that's what I'm calling. And then in the Chicago,
look at their face.
For the Chicago Bears, Chicago Bears versus New Orleans Saints, I have the Saints winning that by a landslide, 34-10. I'm calling it over there, and I have not Drew Brees throwing 2 touchdowns, but I have Taysom Hill doing it instead for the deep passes. He'll throw 2 TDs in that game. And then for the Cleveland Browns versus Pittsburgh Steelers game, I said on the Running Back radio show earlier this week that it was going to be the Steelers pulling off the win here. I still think that, but I have to agree with Darius and the fact that Kareem Hunt will break out for 100+ yards in that game. But I'll also say that Kareem Hunt will also get 100 yards in that game too.
So Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt,
both
but they still lose?
Yes, they do.
Wow.
Mainly because mainly because I still think that without a decent passing attack against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, you can't pull it off. That's what I mainly think. I think Baker Mayfield's going to get spooked and shut down. And it's because he went against the backups in Pittsburgh last week, and what's he have to do against the actual guys? Mika Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward. Huh?
Mika did play.
That's fair. But keep in mind, Baker didn't win that game last week with his arm. He won with his legs.
He's going to do it again.
All right.
Listen, man, you're going to lean heavily on this one dude that I think they call him Nicholas Chubb. Yeah, I think that's what they call them. In the Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't really stop the run too well. So
They don't.
listen. I'm trying to tell you, like Nick Chubb, I could see a Nick Chubb 200-yard game in this playoffs.
I'll say this. I will say this. I will be happy if I get that pick wrong, because we all know my feelings about the Steelers. That's it. Darren, I feel like you're steaming right now.
So the fact that it's the disrespect of what Patrick Queen is, because he can possibly be defensive rookie of the year, but I'm just saying, y'all gonna disrespect him by talking about Derrick Henry just gonna make him a lead block. A lead block? Nah, man. Listen, that boy strong. That boy held up tight and nice when it happened the first time. Ain't no lead blocks around here. We good. Just watch. And when it comes down to it and Ravens win the game, I'm gonna come on this podcast wearing all purple for y'all.
That reminds me.
I might just throw on the blue.
That reminds me. I still have to look for. I'm still shopping around for a Lamar Jackson jersey. I'm
waiting.
Hey, Juan, I would wait on that Lamar Jackson jersey. I would wait until he wins a playoff game first.
We shall see you next year, Avery.
Oh,
see you next year.
Wow.
We shall see you next year.
Man, this is why I love this podcast so much.
Wrap it up.
We're gonna wrap it up here. Oh man, guys, this is why I love football so much, because the hot takes just don't ever stop, and they're always fresh and they're always spicy. And with that being said, that will wrap it up here for today's edition of the Air It Out podcast. Everyone that was watching today, thank you so much for tuning in. And guys, this podcast is not the only podcast Inside the Hatches have. We've have a multitude of podcasts and audio work in the works. We have it on Spotify. We have it on Anchor. We have it on Apple Podcasts. We have everything that you listen to audioly. Inside the Hashes has it on all these programs. You also have it on our website, InsideTheHashes.com, as well as on our YouTube channel. Just type in Inside the Hashes on YouTube. And guys, go ahead and follow us on our social media. On Facebook, we are Inside the Hashes, the football group. On Twitter, we are at Inside Hashes. And on Instagram, we are at Inside the Hashes. And also, guys, as much as we like getting the comments on these videos, we enjoy them even more on our Discord. Join the conversation with us. We love talking football with you just as much as you want to talk football with us, whether it's high school football, college football, the Canadian Football League, the Arena Football League, now defunct, the Indoor Football League of Johnny Manziel, which I still don't understand why that one's more of a big deal than it already is. The former XFL 2 could be coming back, and even the NFL, guys. We want to hear from you. Talk to us. Throw us your hot takes, and we'll throw them right back at you. For Avery Collins, for Darren Braxton, for Darius Riddick, for Jerome Jones, behind the mic for Chris Thomas with his hot takes in the comment section. My name is Juan Pablo Wedding Camargo. We'll see you next time.
Matt Ryan.
Yes.
Yes.